Welcome to Elselah Books Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something we all face, aging. But we're going to look at it through a lens you might not see every day, the lens of faith. Our guide for this is a collection of writings from Christian reflection, and they really dig into how we can find meaning, purpose, and even grace in the later chapters of life. So let's get into it. We've all heard this one, right? The Great Yogi Berra. And, we get it logically. Life isn't over just because you hit a certain birthday. But our culture, it seems to get really awkward and confused about what to do with the time after our so-called peak years. It's a stage of life we are all heading for, but one we almost never prepare for spiritually.
And right there, that's the big question. If our purpose is about more than just our job or staying young, then how are we supposed to approach this final, really profound stage of being human? Is it just something to put up with, or does it actually play a deeper role in our spiritual calling?
So to start, let's look at how our society really frames aging. The writers here suggest that our cultural approach isn't one of acceptance at all. It's more like a war that we're constantly waging against a completely natural and, let's be honest, inevitable part of being alive. I mean, just think about it for a second. The ads you see, the words we use, it's all about fighting wrinkles, defying age, staying young forever. Society pushes us to see getting older as this technical problem that we can manage or control, or at least put off for as long as possible. We're not really encouraged to see it as a meaningful part of our journey that actually requires some understanding.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting because you can see the conflict laid bare. Our consumer culture, it tends to link a person's value directly to what they produce and what they can buy. But what happens when we age? Our ability to do those things, in the traditional sense, often declines. This theological view, though, it offers a completely different way to measure value. It says our worth is inherent. It's based not on what we do, but on who we are, created in the divine image. And that sets up this fundamental clash in how we see our elders.
Okay, but before we can find a new, more hopeful way of looking at aging, the source material argues we have to get real. We have to be honest. We have to first acknowledge the very genuine suffering and loss that can come with growing older. Now, this isn't about being negative. It's about being realistic. You see a lot of books out there trying to paint this picture of old age as just a golden opportunity for fun, a rainbow of promises. But for so many people, aging involves the real pain of losing people you love, of declining health, of fading abilities. And if we ignore that reality, we're doing a huge disservice to the people who are actually living through those challenges. So here's the crucial theological idea that reframes the whole experience: discipleship of the cross. It suggests that the struggles of aging, the aches, the dependency, the losses, they aren't a sign that you failed. No, instead, they can be understood as part of the spiritual journey itself, a cross to be carried daily, just like the one Christ called his followers to take up. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It's not about some big, heroic act of suffering. It's about the quiet endurance and the humility you need to face the ordinary, everyday decline. It's about accepting our limitations, our growing dependence, not as some kind of curse, but as a path of discipleship. Okay, so we've looked at it from the individual's perspective. Now, the source shifts to the role of the community. And it introduces this really powerful concept for how churches and families can care for their elders, moving way beyond just obligation to something much, much deeper. This idea of a soul community, it's a direct challenge to a culture that so often isolates the elderly. In this model, older adults are never seen as burdens to be managed. They are vital, honored members of the community. They're seen as resourceful contributors, as givers of wisdom, and just as important as worthy recipients of our care. And this care isn't just about meeting the basic needs, This perspective outlines a totally holistic approach. A true soul community pays attention to all 7 of these interconnected parts of an elder's well-being, from their spiritual and social life all the way to their physical and even environmental needs. The point is to make sure the care isn't just about sustaining life, but about nurturing the whole person. Now, beyond the community's support system, the writing also focuses on our internal posture, the virtues that we can actually cultivate in ourselves to navigate the inevitable changes of aging with grace instead of bitterness. And this is the key question, isn't it? We've all seen it. Some people seem to face that loss of independence with a kind of peace, while for others, it's just a source of deep anger and frustration. So
what makes the difference? Well, the argument here is the two key virtues act as a sort of spiritual long-term care insurance. The first one is gratitude. And this is more than just thinking positive thoughts. It's about being truly open to graciously receiving from others. The second is generosity, which is kind of the flip side, a readiness to give freely, which helps us loosen our own grip on our needs and our stuff. This quote just perfectly captures the power of these virtues. By practicing gratitude and generosity throughout our lives, we are, in a sense, training ourselves. We're practicing up for that eventual shift from being independent providers to being dependent receivers, and we're preparing our hearts to handle that transition with grace. So, how does this all come together? Well, our final section explores a completely new way of understanding purpose in our later years, not as an ending, but as a unique and absolutely vital season of life. Here we see another one of those stark contrasts. The retirement industry sells us this vision of an endless vacation, right? Full of golf and travel. But this faith perspective offers a totally different idea, that these years are for harvesting life, a time to reflect on God's work, to celebrate the contributions you've made, and to acknowledge the wisdom you've gained through a whole lifetime of experience. And listen, this isn't some new, modern concept. These writings point to powerful stories from the Bible to show that a divine calling has absolutely no age limit. Think about it. Abraham was 75 when his great journey even began. Moses was 80 when he led his people to freedom. These examples show that some of life's most significant purposes can arrive not in our youth, but deep into our later years. And this brings us to one last, really challenging question from our source. The Bible talks about dying old and full of years as a blessing. But what does a full life really mean today? In a society that is great at extending life, but often fails to give us a sense of purpose for that extra time, have we lost the art of living and dying well? It's a question that really challenges all of us to redefine value and purpose and what it truly means to live a complete life, from the very beginning to the very end. Thank you for listening, and do subscribe to our channel for more. Try to get this book and read it, and be blessed.